Hey everybody, welcome back to the rock room. No, I'm not in the rock room, I'm actually in the garage. So yeah, I've been called doing extra runs again, so I don't have a lot of time to chat. I had some videos I made up in ahead of time for these reasons, because we have somebody that's at work that's really sick. So I knew I was going to kind of get these extra runs. Wasn't positive, but yeah, well, what do you know? I am. So I've been doing all these extra runs again, even though they said that he was back to being good. Now he's back to being bad again. So we're doing all these extra stuff. So I have a couple videos. One of them is lizard skin. So this video will be looking at some lizard skin. If people are not familiar with what lizard skin is, it's kind of like a green jasper. It's got kind of like little wavy lines, and I'll show you what I mean. We'll take a look at it. All right, here's a piece of lizard skin. Now it has these basically just like layers, and you know, with these layers, you know, you kind of get, you know, just basically a certain look. And I guess if you would cut it at an angle like this, you know, you would get broader layers. But yeah, just basically this piece here is just a layered variety. Now if you look at this next piece, see, this gets to be quite different. And again, you know, some of it has to do with the angle that you're going to be cutting it at, rather than cutting it flat. But every now and then you get these some of these pieces that have this crazy, I'm sorry for the sun reflection, but has this crazy looking pattern on it. So these are the pieces you kind of look for. That's pretty crazy looking pattern on that. Kind of almost like a big jasper, but in a green and black motif. Right there in the bottom is kind of just like a little small section of the layered stuff. And it's kind of like what it looks like on the outside, the weathered part. Kind of see some green, but yeah, kind of interesting. There's a good look at it. Some of these pieces were cut. Now you see, if you cut, when I cut this piece at this angle, you just kind of get the layered look. But if you try to cut it at some different angles, you can get some considerably different looks rather than just the layered look. Like you'd think that this is just layered, but like I say, you cut that, you know, and there's a good example of how that angle was cut. You get this really interesting pattern. Not saying nothing's wrong with the layered pattern, but this is definitely more eye appealing. Okay, here's another big chunk. And again, this is just more of the layered. So again, if you would try cross hatching that, cutting it at different angles, you might get some different looks. And it's real solid, pretty solid stuff too for a jasper. I mean, it's got some conchoidal fractures where they broke the rock, but it's solid. It doesn't have any fractures on the inside when you start to get into it. It's pretty solid stuff. Okay, nice big wedge. And like I say, again, it's just layered, but if you were to, you know, cut it at that angle, then you kind of get this different pattern. what I would feel would be like more of a desirable pattern. But yeah. And then again, just the layers of different colored greens I cut into this one. And on the bottom, I cut this bottom, trying to see what this bottom was, and it's kind of just like a breccia. Again, just trying to find some different looks with the same stone. I'm sure, you know, and it does get considerably a different color from this, you know, this brighter green up here into these browner greens, and then, like I say, this big breccia area on the bottom, which is kind of cool too. But again, you could just see, you know, when you cut this flat, you can see just the layers, but you can kind of see here where it's really wavy. So again, if you would start cutting this at angles, you would open up a whole different pattern. Now here's one that's not really green at all. It does have some green in there, and again, if you cut this open, you might see a lot more green on the inside. This is obviously a piece that's more weathered, but you can see some kind of, you know, cool looking patterns in this one that might be really interesting if you would cut it open. But it doesn't appear to be like real super green like some of it can be. Now this is kind of an opposite piece, where even where I cut it here, it doesn't have a lot of anything going in it. But if you look, you can still get a kind of a cool design off of it by cutting it at those angles. So even though as a whole it's pretty plain. Now this piece is kind of interesting, and yes, so even with this one, it didn't matter how you cut it, it has that really cool pattern. Now here's a little chunker. Interesting pattern on the bottom. Almost like some dendrites. Zoom in on that. It doesn't appear to be like a stain. That seems to be actually in that layer. Maybe that's what that black layer is going through there. And again, you can see this layer, oh, probably too close. You can see that layer right through there, you know, that has that breccia pattern. And there you can see it good there too. Gets to be a little wavy up on top. And again, on this cut edge, you can kind of see that layer in there. And here's one, of course, it's just layers. This side just happened to break off real clean and flat like that. And here's where I kind of cut it to look. And again, like I say, the bottom has a pretty cool pattern. So when I cut this bottom part off, just to see, you know, to get that different look to it, because, you know, yeah, just a regular straight layer is kind of plain. I mean, it's kind of neat to have some of each, I guess. But this seems to be much better of a pattern. Come on, focus. To make a cab out of than just that. Although that would be kind of cool too. So they both have their ups and downs. And then of course some little tiny little slices. It's got a pretty cool pattern in there. But yeah, little tiny guy. So here we have a couple slabs off here we'll make our cabs out of. I did one with the kind of the flat look or the layered look, and then one with this kind of cool looking pattern. You can see now this is pretty solid stuff. And by that clinking sound, that means it'll polish up really nice. So we'll throw some shapes on here, figure out what we want, and then we'll trim them out, and then we'll put them on the cab and see what we look like. Okay, so with the laser skin, I just wanted a couple different shield shapes. Say that 5 times real fast. Shield shapes. So we will trim these out on the trim saw, and then we'll move over the cab machine. All right, there's our 2 cut out, roughed out. Now we will take them over to the cab machine, fine tune them, and start turning them into something. Okay, here we got these 2 fine tuned in. Now we will draw our bezel line, and we'll start rounding them over, see what they look like. Remember, this is the back side of the section, the front side. Unless I change my mind. That one, I don't know. What do you think? That side? Or that side to be the front? I don't know. I'll figure it out. Alright. Okay, here's our 2 completed cabs. And like I say, this stuff is super, super hard. This took a long time to grind these 2 down. But that's what will give you your mirror-like finish. The harder the stone is, the better the polish will be on it. And you can see these are just... And this is, you know, the same material, but just by the way you cut it, gives you totally different looks. That's my finger smudge on there. But just by the way you cut it, you get this different look from just the regular layered, and then you kind of cross hatch it, and you get more of a, it's still the layered, but rather than being layered like straight up and down this way, you cut it diagonally, and it gives you these different flow look to it, where this is just cut straight on the layers. See, this would be, that's how they would be orientated, how I cut them. This one was cut straight out, this one was cut at an angled out. And you get the completely different looks from the same stone. Generally the same stone. So yes, quite a difference. So yeah, that's a lizard skin jasper. It's super hard. If anybody knows hardness of stones, you know, we're you know, agates are harder than jasper. No, this is hard. This stuff is really freaking hard. So yeah, it took a long time to grind them stones down, and they take just a beautiful polish. Anybody knows, when it comes to the hardness of stones, the harder the stone, the better polish it'll take. So the harder the stone, the better the polish. So that's just a reference for you. But yeah, beautiful lizard skin, and it just shows the difference between how you cut it, how you orientate it from the layers. You know, if you're cutting it flat on the layer or you're cutting it diagonally on a layer, really changes the patterns dramatically. And of course, you know, I've also shown in other videos where different areas in the stone can have different looks too. But this one, where the whole stone is general, and all the stones are generally look the same, you can change your angles to get different looks of it. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. Remember, always hit that like and subscribe button if you enjoyed what you're watching, and I will see you soon in a rock room near you if I ever get back off the road. Thanks for watching.